Hello and welcome back to the Passion Stories podcast for the Winter Sports Series supported by Protect Our Winters UK. I'm your host, Emma Cole, and I'm thrilled to bring you another wonderful episode all about winter sport. The mountains, the possibilities, the challenges, the beautiful world that the mountains opens our eyes to. I am absolutely delighted to be joined by Iain Innes, who is a British skimo athlete and mountain endurance specialist, if you like. Iain competes in skimo racing, which is one of the most physically demanding alpine sports, and also sort of unique in its way. It's incredibly technical. You're looking at high altitude, you're looking at huge endurance. And Iain is completely immersed in the mountain culture, both in skimo, in also trail running and gliding and many more. And he's going to share his journey and also take us through how skimo works because it is a test event for the upcoming Winter Olympics. So without further ado, welcome to the podcast, Iain Innes. Iain, thank you so much for coming on the Winter Sports Series of the Passion Stories podcast. I am so excited for this one because ski mountaineering, also known as skimo, is absolutely fascinating. How would you explain it to someone who's never heard of it before or seen it?
I guess if you know what ski touring is, it's the same thing, just a little bit faster. There's lots of different types of ski mountaineering, and basically ski mountaineering is moving through the mountains on skis. So a bit like in summer, you might go trail running, and that's a fast way to move around the mountains. In winter, you're not going to get very far with a pair of trainers, so it makes sense to have skis on your feet. And there's competitive ski mountaineering, there's more traditional ski mountaineering, there's people that use skis just as a tool to get to work at a mountain hut, or there's lots of different reasons to use a skimo ski, and it's not just for racing.
And when did skimo become your sport?
A little bit over 2 years ago at the European Championships in Flynn. When skimo was announced as a new test event at the Olympics, the British Mountaineering Council took responsibility for skimo in Britain. They're our governing body, and a group of volunteers formed GB Skimo, and they hosted a town hall meeting for anyone who was interested in skimo to join and hear what their plans were. I was very loosely interested, but mostly a few people had said to me, "Oh, you should join this call. It's your kind of thing. Like, you like running around in the mountains and you're a good skier. Like, just join the call." And so I joined the call, and they said, basically, Britain's a few years behind everyone else from a racing point of view, particularly in terms of preparing for the Olympics, which was one of the topics on that call. And so they said, if anyone's raced before, go and race in the European Champs. That way you can see where you're at compared to everyone else. And we can start to think about things like forming a national team and creating a program. And if you've not raced before, then it's a good race to go and watch, because it was the biggest race of that season. And I'd never raced before. I'd never seen a skimo ski before. I'd not done anything. So I thought, I'll go and watch. I had a week off anyway, and it was in Flynn, which is half an hour or so from Chamonix, where I was going to be in that week. So I planned to go and watch, told my dad about the plan, and he said, well, if you're not scared to come last, you might as well just race. You're going to be there anyway. So that was the start of the whole project. This was maybe only a month or two before the race, and I was in half decent shape because I trained for myself and I trained for fun and I like to move, but I definitely wasn't in European Championship shape, and I didn't even own skis or boots or anything. There's normal ski gear, there's ski touring gear, there's lightweight ski touring gear, and then there's skimo gear is like, way off the end of the scale. It's so extreme compared to what people use on a day-to-day basis. And it's such a small market. It's really expensive kit. And I certainly didn't have any sponsors at that point. And so I begged, borrowed and stealed, basically. PA UK were very kind and sent me a pair of boots, which arrived in the Alps the night before the race. Some guys that I'd found from my Instagram story flew them out for me. I'd never met them before. I met them in a supermarket car park. They gave me the boots, and then I drove up to the pre-race meeting, and I arrived in resort, still didn't have any skis, but there was a British guy called Hector Haynes who was working for the Swedish team. He was their head coach, and he said, I've got a spare pair of coaching skis. If none of my athletes need them, then you can borrow my skis tomorrow. And so I was like, Great. I've got skis, boots, and kind of all the other stuff I'd roughly cobbled together. The morning of the race, it snowed a lot, so there was super high avalanche risk. The race start was delayed so they could modify the course, make sure everything was safe. And that meant I had time to go for like a half-hour ski on these brand new boots and borrowed skis. So did like 2 runs on a chairlift, skied the things. They're like super, super lightweight and they're not as good downhill as the normal setups. The main thing I knew they'd be fine going uphill. The main thing for me was seeing how fast you could go downhill on them and like, they're stable enough to have grip, all these kind of things. So tried to do a couple quick runs. They felt all right. And then next thing you know, I was on the start line.
That is mad. And what was going through your mind when you were on that start line?
This is going to be fun. I wonder what's going to happen. I think my only goal was to not come last. And I actually said to myself, if I don't come last, maybe I'll do another one of these things because it does seem kind of fun. I don't know. I think I've always, even like long before Skimo, I've enjoyed cardio training. I've enjoyed going uphill. I've enjoyed being in the mountains. I've enjoyed technical terrain. So it was a kind of logical step. It was probably going to happen at one point or another. And then, yeah, I thought the race was brilliant. I didn't come last. I managed to beat some of the Swedes, so that was cool. Maybe not so cool for them because I had their skis, but yeah, great experience. And I've gone on to do lots of races since then.
And take us through how a Skimo race works, because it's quite unique. There's the skins, there's going uphill. What is the structure of it?
Yeah, so there's lots of different disciplines. But I guess generally speaking, for all of them, going uphill, we put skins on the base of our skis. They're called skins because they used to be made out of seal skin. You can imagine a bit like when you pet a dog, your hand slides one way and then it's not as nice the other direction because of the hairs. So traditionally, they put seal skins on the base of their skis so the skis would slide uphill but not slide backwards, and that would allow them to make progress up the hill. And then to go downhill, you take the skins off and you ski just like a normal ski. Of course, then that means we need bindings that work on the way up and on the way down. And then there's also sections of uphill where it's too technical to be skinning up the hill. And so you're boot packing or basically walking with skis on your back. And so we have backpacks that have fancy ski carry systems that allow us to take our skis on and off really quickly. Yeah, lots of very niche and lightweight kit, but it's come along a long way in the last few years. And yeah, the kit's brilliant.
And what kind of inclines are you walking up or running up?
How steep are the slopes? Good
Yes.
question. Often steeper than 45 degrees. It would be hard to put a number on it. But on some of the steeper climbs, particularly the sections that we're doing on foot, it's not uncommon to have races where we have harnesses and lanyards where we have to clip into fixed ropes because if you were to fall, you're going all the way back down again.
Wow. What is kind of the key training? Is it that endurance? Is it how quickly you can whip off your skins and transition?
It's both of those and downhill ability as well. I guess that's if you wanted to simplify the sport into 3 key qualities, you've got to be able to ski downhill fast, you've got to be able to run uphill fast, and you've got to be able to do all the transitions between the ups, the downs, the flats, the putting skins on and off, putting skis on and off your back. So a combination of, the technical skills of all the transitions, the technical skills of the descending, and then the fitness to be able to keep up with everyone on the climbs.
And you mentioned earlier that Skimo is a test event at the Winter Olympics, the upcoming Winter Olympics. How do you feel about that as a Skimo athlete?
I think it's very exciting, but there's also mixed feelings probably across the board. It's probably comparable to when rock climbing was put into the Olympics in the sense that they've put these super shortened formats into the Olympics, the sprint and the mixed relay, which are short races. The sprint is 2.5 minutes long and it's ran entirely on piste. And you can, everything I've told you about ski mountaineering so far and what I love about it is time in the mountains, technical terrain, all these kind of things. And the Olympic disciplines don't feature any of that. But the Olympics is still a good thing. It's brought lots of attention to our sport. It's brought new people to our sport like me. I think if it wasn't in the Olympics, I probably wouldn't have ended up being a ski mountaineer. But, almost immediately when I started the sport and realized what disciplines would be in the Olympics, I think I knew that wasn't the type of ski mountaineering I wanted to do. I wanted to do real ski mountaineering in the big mountains. And I'm very fortunate that I'm able to do that. But the Olympics does have lots of positives. Like I say, it's brought attention to the sport. It's brought funding to different countries' national governing bodies. It's increased everyone's professionalism because suddenly there's Olympic medals on the line. But at Milano Cortina, there will be um, basically 16 men and 16 women competing for these medals, whereas at any given World Cup, there would be more like 100 men and 60 women or something like that. So it's only a very small portion of our sport that will be represented, and less than half the disciplines which aren't the traditional disciplines.
Do you hope that this test event allows skimo to be in the Olympics in its full capacity?
I do hope that. I don't think the biggest realist races will ever be what we get in the Olympics. I think they're too hard to run in terms of the terrain that we require and the conditions that we require. I think for all of that to line up with an Olympic event or an Olympic program where things have to happen at 10 o'clock on Friday the 12th or whatever, I think ski mountaineering just doesn't work like that. It's so conditions dependent, and it's ran in the big mountains and in places that are really hard to make safe and to make TV friendly. So I'm not sure the real ski mountaineering disciplines ever will make it to Olympics, but I certainly hope so.
And you talk about, the places where you go ski mountaineering, because doesn't the sport have its history in kind of ancient winter travel, being amongst the mountains? Is that, aside from the competitive nature, is that what attracts you to the sport?
What attracts me to the sport is moving fast in technical terrain, I think. Um, that's why I go out every day. That's why I do it. I do like the competitive aspect as well. Um,
And when you're out in those technical terrains, what are the challenges that you face? Is it the darkness? Is it the potential for avalanche? What are the challenges for a skimo athlete?
yeah, I guess there is some risk involved, whether that is avalanche risk or skiing on glaciers, crevasses, these kind of things. But um, I think we're all very aware of these risks, and um, because we spend so much time in that kind of terrain, I think it's really important to have the skills necessary to deal with that. And I feel like you've probably seen what I do on Instagram. I'm out in the mountains every single day. I think if I didn't make perfect decisions all the time, it would catch up with me quickly, and you just don't last. Like, I think to have a long and healthy career in the mountains, not just in ski mountaineering, but in any of these mountain disciplines, it's really important to make good decisions and know when to turn around, know when to say no, know when to just stay at home.
As someone who loves the outdoors, it's so frustrating that getting to epic places with my gear often means relying on planes or cars. Because greener public transport options are limited, disconnected, and definitely not designed with adventure in mind. Take bikes on trains, for example. It can be a total nightmare as every operator has different rules, every country has different policies, spaces are limited, and UK train prices, need I say more? That's why the Protect Our Winters UK Clean Miles campaign matters. They're calling for public transport that's affordable, reliable, well-connected, and built for adventure so that we can reach the mountains in a greener, easier way. Transport is one of the biggest drivers of climate change, and we urgently need better options. Head to the link in the pod description now to sign the campaign. And you are in the mountains literally all the time. And I love watching your Instagram because it looks so beautiful. What's been your journey to develop that passion for it?
I grew up in Scotland, in Edinburgh, and learnt to ski on hill end. Was very keen skier from a young age and started alpine skiing, what most people call ski racing or downhill skiing. I raced on the British team, I guess I don't know what the youngest age I got onto the British team was, probably 12, 13, something like that, until the age of 21. I raced European Cups, World Junior Championships, Youth Olympics. Yeah, most of those. I never raced a World Cup, but just about everything else. And I feel like that gave me the foundations of being an elite athlete and obviously my skiing foundations. And everything else followed on from that.
And tell us a bit about the paragliding.
Good question. Well, spending so much time in the mountains, I don't know, I'm sure if you spent any time in the mountains, you look up and see people in the air sometimes, you're like, oh, that looks interesting, what's going on there? And I always knew that I wanted to learn to fly at some point, and then 2 summers ago, I was doing a lot of skyrunning races, which is a bit like the summer version of ski mountaineering. Yeah, it's like technical trail running in high mountains, basically. And I'd done 4 or 5 races that summer. And when I was driving to the last race of the season, I saw there was some availability on a course the following week, and I knew that I needed a week off training anyway. I thought, perfect, I'll book a 5-day course and see what that's all about. And as expected, I mean, I knew I was going to like it, but I don't think I realized how big of a part of my life it would become. Yeah, jumped headfirst into that. I wanted to learn the skills to fly safely and to be able to fly in the mountains as quick as was safe to do so, because that was the type of flying I was interested in. And I guess over the last year and a half, I've put quite a lot of time into that to make it happen, but it feels like I'm in a position that I want to be in, and um, I have, a skill set and lightweight equipment that allows me to fly from some of the big mountains around Chamonix, and that's exactly what I dreamt of before I could fly. So I feel very happy about all that.
And can you fly all year round?
Yes, you can. There's different types of flying at different types of year and times of the year. In summer, you can use bigger wings and you can fly, you can catch thermals, which are basically pockets of rising air, and you can take off somewhere and you can fly way high above where you've taken off from, or you can cover quite long distances. Um, I've not done a lot of cross-country flying at all. I've kind of dipped my toes in the water. But even just flying, up and down the length of the valley here, or had some incredible flights around Annecy, flying the length of the lake or jumping across and back again. Things like that kind of opened my eyes to what's possible. People fly, I don't know, 300 or 400 kilometers in a day, and I'm a million miles away from that right now. But knowing what is possible and knowing what you can do with a glider, um, I think is very exciting. To me, it feels like a sport that has like unlimited possibilities still, and there's so many disciplines that I can grow into and learn more about. And there's not like an obvious, okay, I've learned this, now I can do it. It's like no matter how good you get at it, there's always more to learn. So it's quite special in that respect.
And is there a world where, for example, you would like hike up the mountain on your skis, get to the top, and then jump off and fly with the skis in your backpack?
Absolutely. Or you can take off with skis on your feet and land with skis on your feet, which depending on the conditions can be easier. I guess we don't really jump with gliders. It's a bit more like a plane taking off and landing. You accelerate and get speed, and then as your wing starts to provide lift, you leave the ground. So it's not as extreme as like base jumping or something like that, which people maybe often don't see the differences between the two. But yeah, skis and wings certainly can be used together. Um, 2 different examples where that might be helpful. One, if the snow conditions are bad, they might be fine for going uphill on skis, as in you wouldn't want to be in your trainers. But then if it's all icy and horrible, you might not want to ski back down. So you could fly back down. Or something that's becoming more and more common, or that people are developing, is using a wing as a tool to get into somewhere or to get out of somewhere to go skiing. So there's now some lines in Chamonix that you used to be able to ski a line all the way to the bottom of the valley, and because the glaciers have receded at the bottom, it just like cliffs out onto the glacier. And so either you could abseil for hours in the dark, or you could ski your line and then just take off and fly down to the landing of the valley and go have a burger. So yeah.
Wow. You make it sound so easy and chill, but I feel like it might not be that chill. Where does this passion for kind of like the extreme end, shall we say, of sports come from?
I mean, I should say none of it feels that extreme to me. It feels all quite calculated, and it feels like all of these sports and all of the equipment that I own to do these sports, they're all just like different tools. Like my skis are just a great way to move through the mountains when there's snow on the ground, because running in the snow sucks. Or in summer, my trainers feel like a great way to move through the mountains because, it's simple. You just put shoes on and go. And a wing is just like another tool to get down from the top of the mountain, or to avoid bad snow, or to fly into a cool place to go skiing. And once you start to treat all of these things as tools, and once you get used to coming up with these creative ideas that use all these different tools and combine them together, I think that's when it's really satisfying. It doesn't line up that often that you can like ski and fly and combine all these things together into one day, because to be able to fly, you need low wind. To be able to ski, you need a certain amount of snow. And so all these different things have to line up, and you have to have the equipment and good partners and all these different things. And I think what makes it so satisfying doing these kind of combo days, or these days where you can do multiple sports like that, is because it's so hard for it all to line up. It doesn't actually happen that often, that when it does happen, it feels pretty special.
And you mentioned earlier about adapting to be able to get to places because of receding glaciers. What has been your experience of climate change in the mountains since being a mountain athlete?
Maybe I see it most with skiing. Growing up as an alpine skier, training on glaciers across the Alps in summer, some glaciers just don't get trained on anymore. I spent weeks and weeks in summer and autumn training in Teen, for example, on the glacier, and that's a glacier that doesn't open in summer anymore, and it's receded massively. I talked about some ski lines that, you used to ski down the side of a valley, and if there's a glacier here at the bottom, you used to just ski onto the glacier, and the glacier has melted so much that it's left a big cliff here, and you just couldn't ski to it because there's a drop. There's lines at low altitude that used to get skied all the time that don't get skied that often. If we use Chamonix as an example, even just the pistes that come down from the Brevant and Flégère areas, that it used to be normal that you could ski all the way back down into town. And right now we can, because we've just had a load of fresh snow and we've had this extended cold period, which is great. But for the last 10 years or so, it doesn't actually happen that often, whereas it used to be the norm.
What are your concerns as an athlete about the way the climate is going?
My concerns are seeing politicians maybe not take these things too seriously. I think, we can use our voice and we can make changes. And I think we all do need to use our voices and we all do need to make changes. But I think a lot of those changes need to come from the very top. And right now, with a lot of world leaders, we see it on the news every day, people in denial that this is even an issue. I think that's the biggest problem. And when big powerhouse nations are denying that it's even a problem, I think we're probably in trouble.
Looking forward, do you see their potential for athletes to come together or to continue to come together to speak about it? Or is it predominantly needs to come from the powers that be?
I think a combination of both. I think as athletes, we have a responsibility to talk about it. And I think we have credible voices, which not everyone does. And so I think it's important that we use our voices to talk about these things. And I think we should use our voices to encourage people to make changes themselves to reduce their impact on the climate. But I think more than anything, we need to implement policy change a higher level than just personal decisions. I think it's important that we recycle, and I think it's important that we cut down on travel and all these kind of things. But I think the biggest changes need to come from governments, politicians, big companies.
What excites you about the way the industry, if you like, is going, and what would you like to see implemented or changed?
I think in general, the quality of products, particularly the high performance products or the stuff I use, is incredible. The skis, the gliders, all of my kit is so lightweight and yet still durable enough for pretty much everything I throw at it. I think that's incredible. 10, 15 or 20 years ago, weight kit just wasn't durable. Lightweight kit had a much shorter lifespan. And obviously lightweight kit does still have a shorter lifespan than heavier stuff, but is strong enough. And so I think that's really impressive. I think you can do so much more in the mountains with lightweight kit. You can cover bigger distances. You can climb harder stuff.
When you look at your career, you've gone from alpine skiing to skimo, gliding. It really sounds like you are exactly where you're meant to be. What would be your piece of advice for someone who's listening and thinking, I want to do what Iain's doing?
Do it. Yeah, do it. I don't know. It's definitely not a Nike advert, but I feel like all of the things that I'm lucky enough to do now on a day-to-day basis were a dream a few years ago, and I just decided to do them. I decided I wanted to race ski mountaineering, so I begged, borrowed and stealed. I didn't buy any of that stuff at the start. And I know not everyone can just find things like that, but do everything in your power to make it happen, make sacrifices. I don't know, I live in a 2015 van in the Alps in winter to make this work. I think if you really want things to happen, you can. So that
A 2015 van.
it's got, I don't know, 110,000 miles on the clock. It's just had a new alternator, probably needs a new battery soon, but it's home. It's still going strong. So yeah, that's my secret weapon.
I love it. Iain, thank you so much for coming on the Passion Stories podcast. You have been a wonderful guest.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Is it just me, or do you want to go straight out to the mountains right now? Wow, thank you so much, Iain. That was so inspiring. And I'm just dreaming of paragliding through the mountains, the snowy capped tops, all of that. Romantic, beautiful. And also incredible that Iain has carved out his life like that from an alpine skier and simply going for skimo because there was that cool, I think, that really shows like that one decision you make in your life can lead you to amazing places and the opportunities, the doors that this can open. I think it's so cool that he was like, yeah, okay, I'll join the call. And this is where he is now. And I also thought Iain's points about skimo being in the Olympics, the pros and the cons, because sometimes when a test event goes into the Olympics, you automatically think, well, this is fantastic. But as Iain says, it doesn't show the full depth and the breadth of the skimo sport. Definitely make sure you watch it. I think it will be amazing. And having myself really binge through quite a lot of skimo content, I am buzzing to watch it because it's incredible. But also bear in mind that, this is just a snippet. I think it is mad that there's just 16 athletes out of, over 100, as Iain was saying. And that really is a snapshot. And it is fascinating how, a sport becomes a test event and whether it will grow and what will come from it. And he also mentioned a lot, the funding, the opportunities, the sponsors that brings. And so here's hoping that it is a really positive impact on the sport, and it will not only, improve the opportunities for these athletes, but it'll open doors for even more to get involved. And, interestingly, I thought that Iain talking about the climate impact that he sees as a ski mountaineer, as an absolute mountain lover, is also really interesting. And, this podcast is supported by Protect Our Winters UK because it is crucial that we help restore the planet, that we campaign for better ways. And it is really tough when the leaders at the top, deny climate change. But that's when the work that Protect Our Winters do is so important. And go sign their Clean Miles campaign. It's linked in the description of this podcast, and it is so worthwhile. I would extend that to supporting causes that you care about. Your voice matters. So if you can use it, then I would really urge you to do so. As for me, I'm about to go dream some more about skimo, and I love the story about how the skins used to be seal skins. How cool. And go and watch some videos because they whip them off, and it's amazing. It's fascinating too. And yeah, thank you so much, Iain, coming on. Go and follow Iain on Instagram. I don't know if you're going to like it, but for me, watching some of his content is like, wow, it's absolute goals. And I think his advice there at the end was really, straightforward. Go and do it. If you can, go and do it. Take that chance, take that moment and see what you can achieve. Because that's exactly what Iain has done, and it is incredibly inspiring. As always, make sure you like, follow, share, subscribe to the Passion Stories podcast. Share it with your friends. Tell everyone about the Passion Stories podcast because it really helps us boost and share these amazing stories that are incredibly important, all about passion, inspire, encourage curiosity, and ultimately celebrate the human spirit. I've been Emma Cole. It's my absolute pleasure to bring you the Winter Sports Series, which is supported by Protect Our Winters UK. I'll be back in a fortnight with another wonderfully passionate guest, so make sure you know when it's coming. Thanks to Toontank for the tunes.